Chat BG1B, the same thing. This was a good topic. I applied ammonium sulfate for the first time in early October this year on my Kentucky bluegrass home lawn in Indianapolis and got a really great result compared to urea. Did my first soil test in mid-November and pH was a 7.7. If I had not watched your live shows on fall fertility, I would have applied more ammonium sulfate and added some elemental sulfur with it in the November app. I skipped that late fall app, so thanks for helping to dial in the timing for the best possible results. Where did he say he was? Indianapolis, yeah. Yeah, it's a little late to be putting out too much stuff in November. Yeah, I mean, you probably could get by with it, but even Purdue would say, yeah, you might want to slow down a little bit there. Do it in the spring or do it next fall or something. If you'd be so kind, Travis, I'm really curious if you believe citric acid is necessary to apply along with ammonium sulfate and sulfur to lower the pH needle in a year's time by close to half a point down from 7.7. We have very hard city water here, and my lawn irrigation system uses the city water. Everything in the soil test was in normal ranges except for iron and manganese, which were high. Calcium also barely on the high end. These are high from the city water and high pH is my thought. So citric, I mean, the question I always have, I'll come back, how much is left? Okay, let me read 2 more paragraphs. I'll come back to this paragraph. Man, thanks for all you do in this channel. Can't wait to hear about the upcoming thoughts and papers on different nutrients for fertilization. Future topics of interest for me would be different fungicide effectiveness as a preventive and or curative for fungal diseases on cool season grasses, app timing, and how quick to water, liquid fungicides, pH, nitrogen, potassium, roll with cool season lawns, leaf spot melting out, so more diseases and so forth. Okay, so back to this paragraph, if you'd be so kind. I'm really curious about citric acid. So would I include citric acid with ammonium sulfate to lower the pH by half in a year or whatever? The question I have, as it always is why do you want to lower the pH? Do you have a good reason? And if your turf looks good, then you don't have a good reason, basically. Or unless you have a pre-existing condition. Let's say your pH was 8.5 and it was horrible. Your turf was horrible. And you started lowering it, and now it's down to 7.7 and it's looking better. Okay, well, that was a pre-existing condition and you're trying to hold it down. Well, then maybe you do have a good reason. Even if your turf does look good, maybe you're trying to hold it down because previously it was high enough to cause some problems for your turf. But if it's 7.7 and the turf looks fine, I wouldn't worry about applying any citric acid. I mean, I would use the least expensive nitrogen source even at 7.7. I might be convinced to use ammonium sulfate if I had some, but I mean, it's not going to hurt anything. It's probably only going to help, I guess, ammonium sulfate. But if you're going to add, if your intention is to add citric acid on top of ammonium sulfate to help increase the rate of reduction of pH, I mean, I wouldn't do it, but I don't know what your lawn looks like. So if your lawn looks fine, then I would just stick with ammonium sulfate and, you know, be happy with it. I don't know if you're going to gain a whole lot from adding an expense like citric acid. I mean, it's not expensive, but adding a citric acid to ammonium sulfate to just lower the number. My concern is that you're chasing numbers. You're trying to hit a magic number on pH when your eyes need to be focused on the turfgrass first. And if your eyes are focused on the turfgrass and your turfgrass is not acceptable to you, okay, you say it's not acceptable and it's 7.7, then I would still just stay with ammonium sulfate. Just stick with ammonium sulfate. You know, follow the Purdue recommendations for nitrogen applications. You know, I don't know if it's 1 to 2 pounds a year. I don't remember the rates they recommend. But if you're doing 1 to 2 pounds, maybe it's 3 pounds, whatever they have on their charts, with ammonium sulfate, you'll see that 7.7 more than likely be reduced. And it may be reduced by more than you expect. Ammonium sulfate has a tremendous impact on pH. Now, you have heavier soils there, I think, in Indiana, but it'll still help reduce it, okay? So I would just stay with ammonium sulfate.